Well, good evening, Steve Southerland and Craig Prosser. Here you are at the AFVN Reunion 2016 in Raleigh, North Carolina. What's it like to be back together again after so many years with so many people?
After so many, over 50 years. It actually, it doesn't seem like it's been that long. It could have been last week or something.
The only problem is trying to restore the memories and get them accurate at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm trying to correct his memories, but he's trying to bring me evidence that I'm wrong.
I see. Okay. Well, tell me, do you guys, y'all were both there very early in the war when it was AFRS, is that correct?
Yes.
And AFRS is short for?
Armed Forces Radio Service.
Okay. And so did you guys set the station up, or was that just a little bit earlier? I don't know.
Well, he preceded me there, so he probably has some of that history, but I remember it too.
All right.
I'm not sure when the station actually went on the air. I got there in April of 1963, so it wasn't too long after the initial broadcast, but I wasn't there when it actually first went on the air.
Well, it was in 1962, and Navy Chief Journalist Bryant Arbuckle was the catalyst for it. He put it on the air and assigned the original people and was one of the first Dawnbuster hosts. And when I came there at the end of August in 1963, I was there a couple of weeks, and he gave me my first break, assigning me to the night news editor broadcaster's post.
All right. Was Chief Arbuckle, is he the gentleman who began the Good Morning Vietnam cry, or did that come later?
I don't know that he actually...
I don't know who said that first.
You were saying it in some fashion when...
Yeah, I didn't exaggerate it as much as it was exaggerated later by Robin Williams in the film. I don't think extend to Good Morning Vietnam. I didn't project it quite that much, I don't believe, but it was the Dawnbuster from the outset. And
well, I worked with when I was shifted to the morning show in early 1964, I worked with three different people. First was Lee Hansen, who was probably the first one permanently assigned to the job, and Lee said that somewhat. And when Lee rotated back to the U.S., Steve took over, and for a short time after he left, I worked with Don Busser, who had the perfect name for the job.
Can you imagine that? Don Busser on the Dawnbuster?
Oh my,
People
yes.
didn't believe it. They thought it was contrived, but it was not.
Yeah, Don was a real radio talent. And
did he not switch from news to...
Well, no, he was the Dawnbuster host, but he also co-anchored the evening news.
But he did news before he started the...
Yeah, but he wasn't there real long. I don't remember.
Because one of the unfortunate stories that I probably shouldn't even tell is he was in the news booth and I was on the control board when they assassinated President Kennedy.
Oh my.
And Don was extremely easy to break up. And I actually broke him up reporting on the death of our president, which was not a very admirable moment on my part, but I didn't honestly do that much to do it, but he was just so easy to collapse. I don't know.
No, wait a minute. I'm going to have to go back and correct.
Okay, shoot, you've been fighting me all...
The story, and it's been published, is that the president's assassination happened in the wee hours of the morning for us.
Yes.
And the two-man crew that came in to put it on the air were Bob Andreessen and Lee Hansen. Andreessen was the newsman, Hansen the Dawnbuster host, and they were shocked to read this news, and they went on with it, and Hansen forgot to turn the transmitter on. They were broadcasting, they thought, and Andreessen was not. He was not on the air when he was reading it, and according to accounts that they gave our friend Rick Fredrickson, who wrote about this a couple of years ago, they were both bawling like babies, was the quote. And you would have come in
Well, this would
later.
have been a rerun.
Yeah, you would have come, and so what you were describing was probably very true, but it wasn't the breaking news at that time.
It wasn't breaking news, but it was a rehash of obviously a critical story.
Okay.
And I did bad.
But I was on the night shift in those days, and by the time I came in, it was old news. But keeping in the fashion that was happening in what we understood in radio stations back here in the U.S., we went on very somber music for 3 or 4 days, as much news as we could get from our limited resources, and I don't know. It was at least 5 days later that we resumed any semblance of normal programming. But
And then Don Busser preceded Adrian Cronauer. Cronauer was the successor to Busser on the Don Buster show.
Right.
And then, of course, you know that he wrote the screenplay for Good Morning Vietnam.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. By the way, you probably know this, but even in '73, when the station shut down, the morning show was called Dawn Buster.
Yeah.
Still, the name never changed. It was a great name, and you guys started and helped start a great tradition.
A lot of soldiers got to listen to that radio station.
That's right. Well,
when we were there broadcasting, our potential audience was like 13 or 14,000 Americans, and however many Vietnamese people might have tuned us in. We broadcast in Saigon on a what were we, 5,000 or 1,000 watts
I don't recall.
of AM, and then there was an FM transmitter too, and then we had several translators up country that got us into Pleiku and Nha Trang and places like that. But we also we didn't have total coverage, but we got around the country in some fashion or another. One of the stories that reminds me, we had a signal that got into one of the bases in Thailand, at least one of the bases in Thailand, where the U.S. was conducting activities that they weren't acknowledging at the time. And one of our DJs was so excited to get a request for music from the guys at Udorn, Thailand.
Where we weren't supposed to be.
Right. So he dedicated some songs to them, and well,
the phone started to ring.
The brass was...
The brass was a little upset. Nothing ever happened to him. We all thought it was funny.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for sharing your memories today, and welcome home, AFRSers.
Thank you.
Thank you.